Travis the Chimp Attack. It was February 16, 2009, and 55-year-old Sandra Herold was at her home in Stamford, Connecticut. Sandra was the owner of a 14-year-old chimpanzee named Travis. Travis weighed around 200 pounds and stood over 5 feet tall. For years, Sandra and those around her believed he was tame and domesticated. She was wrong. On the morning of February 16th, Sandra noticed that Travis had taken her keys and gone outside. In an attempt to get him back inside, she called her friend, 55-year-old Charla Nash, to help. Charla had known Travis for years and had no reason to think he would ever turn on her. Sandra handed her one of Travis's favorite toys, a Tickle Me Elmo doll, and asked her to help coax him back inside the house. But Travis charged at Charla and launched a sustained, violent attack. Travis ripped off her hands at the wrists, pulled at her face, and mauled her to the ground. Sandra grabbed a shovel and started hitting Travis, but he wouldn't stop. Then she stabbed him in the back with a butcher knife. That didn't work either. Sandra ran to call the police and frantically begged for help. What, going your friend? Oh, your kid, buddy, going your friend? When the police arrived, Travis charged at the officer and tried to open the patrol car's door. The officer shot him multiple times, and Travis ran back into the house. Bleeding heavily, he made his way to his cage and died. Charla Nash would undergo multiple reconstructive surgeries, including a full face transplant and hand transplant. Despite surviving, Charla's life was permanently and severely altered. Steve Irwin Stingray Incident. It was September 4, 2006, and Steve Irwin, a world-renowned wildlife expert and conservationist, was in the waters of Bat Reef, located off the coast of Queensland, Australia. He and his cameraman, Justin Lyons, were working on a documentary titled Ocean's Deadliest. Irwin was no stranger to handling dangerous animals. Throughout his career, he had faced crocodiles, venomous snakes, and all sorts of deadly creatures. But on this particular day, he was filming with a completely different animal, a stingray. The plan was simple. Get underwater footage of a large bull stingray, an animal that is typically not aggressive unless threatened. The stingray in question was around 2.4 meters or 7.9 feet wide. As Irwin swam above it in shallow waters, the stingray suddenly perceived him as a threat. With no warning, it whipped its long, venomous tail upward, striking Irwin directly in the chest. Stingrays have a sharp, serrated barb near the base of their tail, which is designed to defend against predators. Irwin instinctively pulled the barb out, which only made the situation worse. What he didn't know at the time was that the barb had punctured his heart, causing massive internal bleeding. His cameraman, Justin Lyons, rushed to his aid, urging him to stay calm as they got him back onto the boat. The entire attack was recorded, and in his final moments, Steve Irwin reportedly looked up at his crew and uttered his last words. "I'm dying." Despite desperate attempts to resuscitate him, the wound was fatal. By the time the medical team arrived, Irwin had already succumbed to cardiac arrest caused by the puncture wound. Stingray attacks on humans are incredibly rare. When they do occur, they are usually not fatal, as the venom is not potent enough to kill a human outright. However, in Irwin's case, the placement of the wound directly into his heart made survival impossible. Marius Ells's pet hippopotamus. It was December 2011, and Marius Els, a 40-year-old South African farmer and former army major, was known for his unusual pet, a fully grown 1,200 kilogram or 2,645 pound hippopotamus named Humphrey. Els had adopted Humphrey as a calf when the animal was just 5 months old. Rescued from a flood, the baby hippo had been hand-raised by Els on his property, a large farm in Free State, South Africa. Over the years, Humphrey grew to his full size, and despite being one of the most dangerous animals in Africa, Els insisted that he and the hippo shared a deep bond. He often referred to Humphrey as his son and claimed that the animal was harmless, despite warnings from wildlife experts who repeatedly told him that hippos were unpredictable and highly aggressive. Hippos are responsible for more human deaths in Africa than any other large land animal. They are highly territorial, have powerful jaws that can crush bones in a single bite, and can run up to 30 kilometers per hour or 18 miles per hour. Despite their herbivorous diet, they are known to attack humans and boats unprovoked. Els, however, remained convinced that Humphrey was different. He would swim with the massive animal, ride on its back, and even feed it by hand. But the warning signs were there. Prior to the fatal attack, Humphrey had already shown aggression multiple times. At one point, he had chased golfers who had wandered too close to his enclosure. In another instance, he had broken out of the farm and terrorized a nearby town, causing damage to property. Yet, Els continued to believe he could control him. On December 11, 2011, things took a tragic turn. Humphrey suddenly turned on Els, mauling him to death in the river on his farm. When authorities arrived, they found Els's body badly mutilated, with severe bite wounds and crushed bones. Hippos have enormous canines, some reaching up to 50 centimeters or 20 inches in length, and they can bite with a force of up to 1,800 pounds per square inch. The massive hippo had used its powerful jaws to clamp down on Els, drowning and fatally injuring him in the process. After the attack, local authorities put Humphrey down, deeming him too dangerous to remain alive. Timothy Treadwell Bear Expedition. It was October 5, 2003, and Timothy Treadwell, a self-proclaimed bear enthusiast and wildlife activist, had spent over a decade living among wild grizzly bears in Katmai National Park, Alaska. He and his girlfriend, Amy Huguenard, had ventured into the park for their annual stay, documenting their experiences with the massive predators. Treadwell firmly believed that he had developed a bond with the grizzlies, training that they trusted in and would never harm him. That's also why he didn't even bring protective equipment like bear spray. Treadwell and Huguenard would leave in September, before the onset of winter, when bears become more aggressive due to scarce food supplies, but for reasons unknown, they decided to stay a few extra weeks. This mistake would prove to be fatal. On October 5th, a bear attack was recorded on an audio device that was left running inside Treadwell's tent. The recording captured the horrifying sounds of a massive grizzly attacking Treadwell just outside the tent. Amy screamed for him to run, but there was nowhere to go. The bear had him pinned. Over the course of several minutes, Treadwell was mauled, his body crushed under the weight of the predator, his screams growing weaker as the bear continued its relentless attack. Amy, armed only with a frying pan, tried to fight off the bear, but she too was attacked and killed shortly after. The audio lasted roughly 6 minutes before going silent. The next day, a pilot arrived to pick up Treadwell and Huguenard, but instead found their remains. When park rangers arrived, they discovered a large bear near the campsite, still acting aggressively. They were forced to put the bear down and later found human remains inside its stomach. Siegfried and Roy tiger attack. It was October 3, 2003, and Siegfried Fischbacher and Roy Horn, two world-famous magicians, were in the middle of their performance at the Mirage Hotel and Casino. Their show, Siegfried and Roy, was legendary for its incorporation of exotic animals, particularly their collection of trained white tigers. That night, 7-year-old Manticora, a 400-pound white Bengal tiger, was set to perform alongside Roy. The performance began as usual, with Roy leading Manticora onto the stage in front of thousands of spectators. But something went wrong. Manticora suddenly deviated from his usual routine, becoming visibly agitated. Roy attempted to regain control, but Manticora latched onto his arm, throwing him off balance. In an effort to de-escalate, Roy repeatedly shouted, "No, no, Manticora," and attempted to use his microphone to tap the tiger on the nose as a distraction. But the attempt failed. The tiger suddenly lunged at Roy's neck, sinking its teeth deep into his flesh and dragging him off the stage like prey. The audience, initially thinking it was part of the act, quickly realized the severity of the situation when handlers rushed in, attempting to pry the tiger off. Manticora had punctured Roy's carotid artery, causing severe blood loss. The attack lasted near seconds, but the damage was catastrophic. He was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, suffering from a stroke and partial paralysis due to the blood loss. Roy survived, but his career was over. He never fully recovered and was left with impaired speech and mobility. Despite the severity of the attack, Roy never blamed Manticora, insisting that the tiger had been trying to protect him after he allegedly stumbled. However, animal experts and trainers believe that the tiger simply reverted to its natural instincts, seeing Roy as vulnerable prey. Thanks for watching. See the video on your screen? Well, YouTube thinks this one might interest you as well, so go ahead and check it out if you like.